about ready to go here? It is 7:30, almost sharp, 3 seconds after. This is the Planning Commission meeting of July 18th, 2024. We're in 133 of the Brookfield Town Hall. Who is here? I am here, Scott Dale, the chair. Michael Duvall, vice chair, is not here at the moment. Courtney Knox, secretary, is here. Linda Taylor, member, is here. John Mara, member, is currently not here. Mark Loengart, alternate, is present. August Stepniak, alternate, is present. So we have two regular members who are not here, so Aga and Mark would be voting on anything that takes place. Okay. 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 On with the show here. The first thing we'll do is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, the Planning Commission meeting first, which took place on July 18th. Please take a look at those. Let me know if you would like to make any changes.
Yeah, there's
okay.
one change I would make.
Mhm.
So on page 2, around line 99, it says that I felt option D would be the most optimal. I didn't say it would be the most optimal. I was just weighing the benefits of it against the negatives, and I said, well, these are the benefits of going with option D, but I didn't say it would be the most optimal. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just, it doesn't really matter. It's just for clarification.
How should we restate that if that's the case?
I felt there were certain benefits to option D. However, the access road through the wetlands could pose a safety concern during a storm. I think that's fine.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments regarding or suggestions to the minutes for planning on July 18th? If not, if somebody would like to make a motion for approval of the minutes with the one amendment that Mark has said.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ayes?
Aye.
Linda?
Abstain.
Nays? Right, you're abstaining, you were not there, sorry. Okay, very good. On to the next, which is the POCD subcommittee meeting, which took place the same evening. That was at 7 o'clock that evening. That would be for, this is part of that. All four of us were here, aside from Linda, right? So any edits or updates to that? Minor one for me, I think, would be under line 20. I believe I was zoning and sustainability should be attributed to S. Right.
Right.
I'm sorry, Scott, would you mind repeating it?
Line 20, actually it was a review of minutes of the previous meeting, but it was zoning and sustainability should be attributed to S-Dale. Which should be reflected on those minutes. Anything else anybody would like to bring up? If not, anybody on the POCD, like subcommittee, like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with the revised change that Scott said.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0 for those. Okay, very good. All right. On to new business. 3A is 195 Federal Road and 21 Sandy Lane. PL-24-7. Some folks here to speak on that.
Sorry, where I said FTEs. Good evening, my name is Peter Olson. I'm an attorney with an office in Bethel at 275 Greenback Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicants and owners of the two properties in question. That is 195 Berkshire LLC and Berkshire Industrial Corporation. 119 Federal Road LLC and Berkshire Industrial Corporation. Berkshire Industrial Corporation is the sole member of 195 Federal Road LLC. Both entities are representatives met by Greg Steiner, who's the president of Berkshire and member of 195. The application before you is technically under your procedures, an application for lot line revision.
Mhm.
But really what we're proposing is to consolidate these two parcels that are simply merging together. 195 Federal Road, you may know, currently has a commercial development on it, which hosts Maggie Mays, Organic Flies. So that's that structure. And then behind it, down Sandy Lane, is a vacant piece of land well, both properties are in the C1 industrial commercial zone. So we're working on a development of that vacant land in the rear. Our proposal will be for multifamily housing. And under the zoning regulations, we need to have a minimum of 5 acres. So the intention of this is to merge the parcels so we have 6 point something acres. And that will allow us to make that application. There is also a requirement that multifamily developments be located on certain types of roads, arterial collector roads. Federal Road is such a road, and so this will allow us to meet that provision of the zoning regulations. Sandy Lane is not a local road. So that's it. We're here to ask you to allow us to consolidate these lots. Greg Steiner is the principal involved, and we'd like to say a few
Yeah,
words.
I'd like to just go background. Again, Greg Steiner. Our offices are in Bethel on 2 Parkland Drive. I live here in Brookfield for about 20 years. And we purchased this 195 Federal Road. We purchased from Ability Beyond Disability back in 2005, 2006. And we were, at that time, they had their corporate headquarters here, and we had an empty building where Duracell moved out, and they really wanted to be in the corporate park. So we did worked out really well. So we upgraded the building for them, so they moved their headquarters into our corporate park, and then we did a land swap, and we were able to take over their building. We did all the renovations, changed the whole parking lot, was able to get ozone, Anytime Fitness, and Maggie Fly. So and at the same time, when we purchased this, we also had purchased this property back here. So this whole property had come from Ability Beyond Disability. They had bought for many years. So this has sat vacant since then. We've done well. We have renovated it. We've done very well. We had COVID. We were concerned we were going to lose the restaurant and the gym, Iron Factory. And actually, because of COVID, they've become easier. They've renovated and they've done very, very well. So, and then we ended up buying 117 Old Day Road next door, where Growing Seeds is. We just have Easter Seals in there now, and Reach, which is another nonprofit organization. And then at the same time, we also purchased this house on Sandy Lane. So we kind of have a lot of area taken care of, not from a bad way, but that we don't have neighbors we can control us. We don't have people, we never had a complaint with any of this. So we're doing some long-term strategy planning and thinking that this would be a good combination of working together to do more of a mixed use, light, what am I trying to say? Not crazy residential, it's just a nice community, which would then tie in with the community across the street as a transition zone from industrial to residential. So then we're here to just ask the commission to put the 2 lots together.
Thanks, Greg. Just want to make one clarifying point on timing, is we're asking you for this permission because we think we need it to make our application to zoning. But we wouldn't actually file the paperwork to do the combination itself until after zoning approved us. And we were ready to go forward with our development.
So, you say you put in some housing, right? Can you just describe a little more about where within the property and how that fits in with the need to have this lot line revision?
So right here is the property, the current property line.
So when you drive in, coming down Sandy Lane, you wanna go to the gym or the backside of Maggie's,
Yeah.
the road is here and you have the parking on either side of that.
Okay.
And then this is where it kinda drops off and there's a kind of a field area, just open area there. And then the entrance to Sandy Lane Village is kinda across here. We had envisioned coming in with a kind of a small road coming in here with one building and another building set here,
Do you have a sense for how many units you're,
approximately 20.
I'm sorry, what was that?
20.
about 20?
20 units in 3 different buildings.
Zoning regulations for this type of development limit the number of units you can have per building. So it's between 6 and 9, depending on
And you need to combine the lots, just so you can clarify it to me, please. You could not just build that on the existing as it is,
Correct.
right?
For multifamily housing in the
Mhm.
C1 zone.
Yep.
You need a minimum lot size of 5 acres.
So that's what you're, okay.
And the road access issue as well, you said, right?
And the road
Yeah.
access issue as well, right.
And it's not so much the road access, but the road frontage.
Okay, right,
The
gotcha.
road frontage on,
Mhm.
so this will be one parcel with that frontage on Federal Road.
Just to clarify, the requirement is frontage
Mhm.
or lot width.
Okay.
So what we have here is technically not enough frontage, but we have enough lot width
Gotcha.
to meet the criteria. So it's lot width of the lot that fronts on the highway, the arterial road, the collector road.
Maybe it's too soon to say, but do you have a sense for kind of the anticipated traffic configuration or
Way too soon to say.
access?
Way too soon
Yeah.
to say. We're,
Okay,
you
because I
know,
know this is an area with a lot of, traffic, so,
We've,
yeah.
we've
mhm.
engaged a traffic engineer,
Okay,
who said to us there will be no traffic here, but I'll do a report for you anyways.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, developments of this size do not generate traffic
Right.
in any meaningful way, so that's his position, and that's what he would tell you if we were presenting to you.
And if
But
it
he'll
will,
have a report.
it'll be coming out down here in Sandy.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it'll be on Sandy Lane.
Okay, gotcha.
How tall are the buildings?
2 stories and 3 stories.
Two stories here. And again, this one kind of sits down, so if you, as most of the time when you see it, you would just see the back.
Mhm.
So that's in a commercial zone, but I understand just to the left of that, you do have a residential area there, right?
Yeah,
That
this
goes
is
right
that-
up against
it's an
it.
interesting zone.
Yeah,
because
it's like an island of its own,
It really
yeah.
is, yeah,
Mhm.
they're all 1 acre lots.
Mhm.
We had purchased this
Hmm.
years ago. That was
Yeah,
probably back
Berkshire
in the 50s, I
Industrial.
believe.
Through a different entity owns the first part.
Yes, we
Oh,
own that.
gotcha.
Okay.
Yes, so our really only, our
Mhm.
only real neighbor that we would be talking to and working with is this one here. And this actually has a garage here in this house and over here, so we
Mhm.
don't hope that it would be, we're looking to do plantings along there, so that we're buffer.
Mhm.
And no traffic access.
No, 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 no.
To
Exactly, it's
So, going back to the traffic, just to be clear on that part of it, because I'm curious of that, because there's obviously a lot of traffic on Sandy Lane, going, up to Costco area, and a lot of folks are looking for ways to get around, it's an alternate
Absolutely.
route, really, for a lot of folks to get around Federal Road.
Go through our building and
Mhm.
go through.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was
But
thinking
this
there.
will just be a
Mhm.
dead end, it's just gonna be like.
That'll be a dead end, okay.
You see, we're not gonna anywhere near it, we're not gonna have to
Okay.
there'll be no access, no plan.
You must go through Sandy Lane in order to get
Yes.
to that, okay.
Again, it's more like a hook, it's gonna
Mhm.
come dead end, it's a circle, one building, one building.
Okay, okay.
So the 5 acres you need, right, to get that, you're including the driveway for like getting into the iron factory as part of that 5 acres?
Or it's all.
Or the whole thing?
Yes, it's all part of the same parcel.
The 2 parcels have currently 2.33
Right.
and 4.083, and you add those together and you get 6.3.
Would any of the existing parking lot be utilized along the current entranceway on Sandy Lane for parking? Okay.
We're still in our very preliminary designs.
Okay.
Let's be
This is
clear on
gonna
that.
take, this isn't gonna happen. It's
Mhm.
gonna take-
The proposal would be to have all the parking that's required by the zoning regulations essentially on this rear piece.
Mhm.
So that it's a standalone. We had talked that, if somebody's having a party or whatever on a Friday night, this
They
parking
could
is
park
empty.
it.
Right,
Mhm.
so, people can park up there if they need to. Not worried about that.
Do you have a sense for, within the units, are you thinking like, family, size, or more 1-bedroom studio?
More like 2 bedrooms.
2 bedrooms,
and maybe a few
mhm.
three.
Okay, gotcha.
They're a townhome style unit
Okay.
rather than an apartment.
Yep.
Yes. We are working with a local architect who's done some very nice work, so we wanna
And would there be any commercial business? No, just, those would be just apartments. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions?
Before, sorry, before you thought of putting this housing complex in, were you ever thinking of any type of other commercial type businesses on that property?
So the issue is that all down this side of the street, after that sort of abandoned structure, but this is all condominium development, all the way down to the fields. And then you come across and it is residential all the way up to our property here on 117. So to consider this as commercial would be kind of like sticking a finger of commercial right down.
Even though you have,
What?
there is that commercial building down here.
Yeah, all the way down
Down
there.
far.
Mhm.
But that end of, when you come down, everything, when you make the left at Grace Bridge is commercial.
Yes.
And then
There's
you
this
have
whole-
the,
There's a whole complex of residential in between.
right, you have the condo complex, but then you have the
Yes.
electricians
Yes, exactly.
right there with the
Steve
two
Taylor was
apartments
the
above
best
it.
one. That was, yes.
So,
And that would, I don't know how that, I mean, that was an interesting, I don't know, it was just a existing, I think it was pre-existing maybe.
yeah, well, the only reason I know there was two apartments in it is I had a friend who lived in there 18 years ago, so.
Yeah, but no,
But-
we could lay out a small industrial building here, but that's not really, we don't feel that's the right thing for the neighborhood. And we could do that as a right now.
Yes.
Would there be, the intention of connecting into Edwards Drive? Okay.
None. That's a quick way to get a bunch of angry neighbors showing
Yeah.
up at our hearings.
Only thought is, you do have some residents there, and they would get an opportunity to, if they choose, to speak.
So we have a
Mhm.
requirement that when we make our application to zoning, that
Right.
there be a public hearing.
Correct.
So
Yes.
it's a special purpose what we want to do.
Correct.
I think when we get our plans together, we try to be good neighbors, we wanna go up and down Edwards Drive, this is really what we wanna do, because we have to
Mhm.
notify them anyway. We find it's much better to try to have them understand what
Mhm.
we're doing and just blast it out.
Before they get the green card.
Right.
But again, we're something that we'd be proud of, we'd hope that they would be proud of too, to see that it's gonna be a, it's gonna be a nice property. It's not gonna be-
Mhm.
I'd just like to apologize for my tardiness. It's day one of football season, and I had a parent meeting with my team, so please forgive me for that.
Any other comments, questions?
Not from me.
Thoughts on next move?
There's no chance of, like, increasing the number of units that you're gonna put in there.
It's driven by
The
this.
zoning regulations
yeah.
govern how many
Okay.
units we can put there.
and the-
Well, because I know you said that you guys own the property there to the left also.
So this is a different zone, this is actually, we have 4 different zones going here, this is a different zone. This is C zone and this is residential zone, so.
Okay.
Yeah, the concept of multifamily housing wouldn't be usable here.
Okay.
The regulations on multifamily housing limit the number of units per building.
Right, well, but there's nothing saying that you guys can't ask for a change of zone on that other side.
Sure, but zoning would,
Probably
zoning probably isn't gonna let us do that.
we have a bunch of angry.
I'm just, you know,
No, it's a good question, but no, we have no teaching.
That is the one, we're saying the one island of residential.
Yes.
They're right there, surrounded by commercial.
I don't
Mhm.
remember the exact density calculation in the regulations, but 20 is it. Do you remember that?
I have no idea.
But more importantly, the number of units per building means that in order to do more than the number of units we're talking about, we'd have to either increase the size of our buildings
Mhm.
or add another building, and it gets very difficult to do that at the
Mhm.
site. It's just not practical. So,
I have one question. Is this the existing curb cut that is already in place that you would build into,
No,
or?
no,
Okay.
that is actually more, across where you enter Sandy Lane.
Okay,
That would be, if anything, we would possibly, depending on the road plan, we need a secondary means for the fire department to go through.
gotcha.
But we looked at the sight lines, we looked at not interfering deals, and it was much better coming in here and just kind of wrapping around a little bit of a circle, including one building, bigger building, and one other building there.
Okay.
So it'd be like its own kind of central with plantings along. So,
Will it have any kind of like community facilities as part of it? Yeah.
Anything else? Like to bring up there? Well, what would you like to do? We can make a motion to approve this. We can table it. We can have further discussion. What would you like to do? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I personally don't feel like we need to discuss it more, but I'd be open if other folks think that we do. Knowing that they'll have a public hearing with the zoning commission,
They'll take care of
then,
that, yeah.
yeah,
Great,
like,
yeah.
there's going to be that, and so, I
Mhm.
mean, I personally would feel okay voting on it tonight, but
Mhm.
I wanna, defer to what other
Yep.
folks who might be more cautious.
Does everybody feel the same way?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, let's just clarify, sorry, before we do that, let's clarify one thing. So John walked in, thank you, John walked in, he's a voting member. I didn't ask between Mark or Aga who was here first.
I did arrive first.
You did? Okay. So, so John will be voting, not Aga will not be voting, right, okay. All right, just to clarify, and you heard enough of this to make a decision, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, okay. So, would anybody like to make a motion on this to approve?
I would make an emotion to approve it.
Okay,
Approve,
to approve PL-24-7,
absolutely.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You'll second, okay. All ayes?
Aye.
5-0, okay.
Thank
Very
you very
good.
much.
Thank you. I believe I'm supposed to say there's a condition on it, right? What is that? The submission of the miler with a check to cover the cost of the recording of the mileage. There we go.
That won't be for a while.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. My old cheat sheets. All right, on to the next. This would be, 3B would be a referral from zoning commission. And there's two regulation changes, so I think we wanna address these separately. The first is Z-24-42, which is, the various, zoning changes that they've proposed to us. The second one would be considered the moratorium question, all right? So let's address the question on those proposed changes first, okay?
I can make a comment. Is it all right if we just start from page 1 and go through each in that order, just so we can
That is-
have a discussion about each section?
Sounds good to me. Anybody feel the same? So I do not have a colored copy, you do, but.
Yeah. So I just wanna-
So, all right.
Okay, so there's,
And I think Laura last time provided some background to some of this, right? And I encourage you to.
Do something.
Yeah, jump in where-
Anytime.
as you see fit, yes.
so the first, okay, so the first change is on
Yeah,
page
so
3.
we're page, okay?
Yep.
All right, so I believe this is matter of changing some wording that's on here, right? Just changing definitions
We're
and
changing the
terminology.
definitions to
Yeah.
match the Public Act and to be consistent with the state statutes.
Is that the same with kitchen, the
That is
definition
not.
for kitchen?
You're
That was
just
gonna,
adding the kitchen definition. We don't currently have one, which means we'll kind of go back to dictionary definition.
yep, okay.
So we wanted to do it mostly because of accessory apartments.
Mhm.
It's really the kitchen that triggers the accessory apartment.
Is
we
there
wanted it
such a definition at the state level?
There is not that I'm aware of.
Really? Okay.
So this is actually a mismatch of a few different definitions that we
Mhm.
kind of I put together, and hopefully we'll come up with
Okay,
the one that they like.
all right. I'll try to move on unless people have questions or
Well,
comments.
My question,
Okay.
start with just the verbiage on changing child daycare to child care center. Why are we changing that?
That,
I don't
It's
understand.
consistency, yeah.
But I understand,
Yeah.
we want to do what the state does, but I don't necessarily always agree with what the state is doing. So the verbiage of it, by changing it from child daycare to a child care center, then gives it I would say the possibility of making that like an overnight facility where children can stay. And the daycare is the point of it being a daycare. It's not meant to house children long-term.
So what they ended up doing with this Public Act, they also created what was allowed. Whether you call it one thing or another, it really is not going to matter. The state has definitely taken over as far as certain actual definitions of these particular licenses and facilities. I'm trying to say that. So whether or not it's called a daycare or a child care center, it just, this is just to be consistent. It would be allowed in that area to run in that particular way regardless on what they called it, so.
Okay, so we're basically saying that, if I'm not mistaken, they're changing it from daycare to be a child center. Basically,
Well, these definitions have actually been in the statutes for a while. I don't know why they did zoning regulations that were called different.
Well, this is really a
things.
change in terminology, not definition,
This is
right?
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
They
the
did not change
terminology
the
is changing definition though. It goes from a daycare center to a care center, which, like, a daycare is something where you're there for the day, where a care center could be multiple days, weekends, nights, everything like that. That's, does that affect the zoning areas as far as where you can have a group daycare, or what we used to call 20 years ago, a group home? Like what we have on Long Mountain or Long Meadow and whatnot, there's a few ability homes that are on there. But it changes the definition, even though it's only terminology, they say.
Well, you could also say, well, child daycare, well, what if you're watching someone who works second shift or
Right.
right?
Yeah, but daycares are not normally open second shifts. Daycares are a
There's
business.
a need, there could be, yeah.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
if there's a need, but there's other facilities that are probably named more appropriately as a child care center where you
Right.
have multiple shifts.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that may be the reason for the change in the terminology, not just to allow some of that broader definition, if you will.
Okay.
And go ahead,
I
sorry.
was just gonna say, I mean, and to your point, if I was hearing you correctly, in terms of, could this switch open up the possibility of other different types of like care facilities, like the abilities or whatever? I mean, it is specifying child, so.
The child's 26 years old, still here in Connecticut.
Okay, yeah,
But,
I mean, maybe,
you know what I'm
I
saying,
mean,
which-
I guess it's
fine,
just
yeah.
like, in terms
Yeah.
of like adult care, I wouldn't personally like read that, into this here, but that's a good point. I mean, I wasn't thinking that there are many adults who are still considered youth, but, Laura, do you know, are adult facilities regulated as their own use?
They
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
They are regulated as their own use, and they have to get certain state licenses.
Mhm.
This is not very large facilities, I
Mhm.
believe, if I remember correctly, it's either 6 or 8, is like the max. We're not talking about like a big facility.
Mhm.
And I wanted it to be specific actually to match it, because these are the ones that are allowed. They changed the rules. Group homes are no longer, and child daycare are no longer allowed to be rolled by special permit. It's not a public hearing process, it's
Mhm.
use as of right. The state changed it, and this is how we're going about trying to reflect the changes that
Gotcha.
the state made for us, to make it clear for us.
And then just to for my own clarification, adding the kitchen, you were saying that's to basically allow for these centers to have a kitchen without triggering the.
That's actually separate, it's just
Oh,
under
so
the
it's separate.
definitions.
Okay, I
We
gotcha.
just wanted to add
Okay.
a definition for a kitchen.
Okay,
here,
I see. Mm-hmm.
Cause we get challenged for enforcement purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm still surprised that's not defined elsewhere, you know? You know?
We just figured it would, you'd go back to the dictionary definition.
Yeah.
You say it in the zoning regs, if it's not defined, you go by.
Yeah. Are we good there? Do you wanna discuss this, that part anymore? Yeah, okay. Page, what are we on now?
Page
Yeah,
4.
Page 4, and, oh, I see. We're deleting, the residential type uses, that's what you just described,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Comments otherwise? Please jump in if you have something you'd like to state. I'm not clear on what the change, so above this setback is highlighted. That was an insertion, or was that,
Yeah, they're adding those words.
they're adding that, okay. All right. The 311, commercial vehicle parking in residential zones, so they're deleting that. Maybe, is there any background on that one?
It's not consistent, so there's two different places within the zoning regulation that talks about commercial parking, and they
Yeah.
did not actually say the same thing. So they
Okay.
decided that they
Mhm.
were going to go with the other one and remove this particular one.
What was the other one?
I knew you were gonna ask me that, but it's not in my brain at the moment, and I didn't bring in my zoning regulations.
I
but-
can,
We have it?
I think I found it. I was researching this before. I think it essentially would allow, the only thing that I found on the zoning regulations about parking, it seemed like it said that you can park one vehicle there. Yeah, but it gave two different vehicle weight classes, and it didn't say anything about parking overnight. And since this would ban overnight parking, since currently overnight parking is not allowed, if overnight parking is suddenly allowed and you can store commercial vehicles on, well, it says unless otherwise approved by the commission.
Well, they're deleting that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I think removing a ban on commercial parking
Mhm.
is not a good idea.
Mhm.
If,
Yeah, I
No.
don't like that.
because, just because, working in Stanford,
Mhm.
and we do a commercial, we have a lot of commercial vehicles. But we see all of these small, I don't wanna say independent, but they're parking all over the place. It just doesn't look good. And what it takes away from the people that have to park their vehicles that are doing it by law in, designated areas.
This is only in residential zoning districts, and this is really for the people who have their work truck pretty much, who bring it home with them every day.
This-
And it does allow one commercial vehicle. There is a size limit. It would be the zoning commission actually does allow commercial vehicles to be parked in residential districts currently.
Sorry, just to clarify, it would allow one park per property, basically,
One
or?
per property,
Okay.
unless otherwise.
So what about just say the condo complex I live in, right?
Condo complexes are normally not in residential zoning districts.
Well, I'm just, multiple housing areas, where
So it
you're
would
not-
affect it.
if you have, my house here, your house here, and we're on the minimal lot standard, and every one of us has a commercial vehicle parked in our property, that's okay. So it can then technically almost look like a commercial zone when you see Tony's Landscape, Joey's Landscape, on the way down.
And I'm looking here, it says they currently allow up to 26,000-pound vehicles, which is,
A dump truck.
yeah, so can I park like a giant dump truck in my driveway and store it there overnight? If this is allowed? If this is removed?
Yes,
Can I currently do that
yes.
overnight?
Yes, we've actually
Okay.
gone to the zoning commission for determination when we found that this was inconsistent in two different places, and asked the zoning commission what they wanted to do with it, and this is what they came up with, that they wanted
How,
To allow it.
to allow.
how,
Okay,
However, though, am I only allowed to do that if the zoning commission says I'm, like, if I have to go to zoning to let them, to let me park my giant dump truck in my driveway? I
No,
can't
they're
just do it
removing
without.
that.
So I'd have to look at the actual zoning regulations for, do you have the zoning regulations?
I pulled it up as a PDF and I did Control F.
Oh, I need to. It is. So, commercial parking in residential zones,
Found it on,
there's no tanker trucks or similar type vehicles for hauling liquids, septic, oil trucks, septic cleanout trucks are not allowed. Oh, not 1, 2, no tanker trucks. Oil trucks, septic cleanout trucks shall be allowed, excuse me. There'll be no loading or unloading of commercial vehicles between the hours of 9 and 7 a.m. No trucks that haul cargo and emits objectionable odors shall be permitted. All vehicles allowed under this regulation are subject to the noise ordinance. Commercial vehicles under operation may not exceed 55 decibels between the hours of 7:30 and 7:30 a.m. and p.m. So we still have the noise ordinance. The only thing that was removed was section E. It says, it shall not be construed to permit a home occupation. It shall not be construed to prohibit commercial vehicles parked temporary while engaged in providing products or services. And then it talks about which ones are allowed by special permit uses for like fire trucks and stuff of that nature. So it's just that is removed. And they did decide that they wanted to allow parking of commercial vehicles.
okay, interesting.
any other comments on that? How do we feel about that?
I just,
Where is the section in the zoning regulation that contradicts this,
It actually was the same section that's quoted there.
it doesn't, I don't think it says anything about overnight parking though in that section, unless I'm missing something.
right,
Because overnight parking
overnight
essentially means you can store it there. I mean, if you can't park it there overnight, then you can't use it as a,
Correct.
yeah,
And they wanted to allow people who have their work trucks to be able to
yeah.
bring their,
Then can it, if it's their work truck and their personal vehicle, then wouldn't it have a different license plate than a commercial vehicle though? It would say
Not
COMB
necessarily.
versus
Yeah, no,
COMM.
I don't think so.
Nope.
I'm not 100%
It's all how
sure.
they register it.
Mm-hmm.
The combo plate allows you to get on parkways. That's the
Okay.
only thing with the combo plate. And you have to be able to provide transportation for a certain amount of people.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get the combo plate. But I could take my F-450,
Mm-hmm.
put a combo plate on it, and run it up and down the Merritt Parkway.
As
But,
long as it meets the height requirement.
right, well, an F-450 is still gonna, it's
Okay.
not much taller than a regular pickup truck,
Okay.
but it's a heavy-duty,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's a
Yeah.
commercial grade truck.
And I get that aspect of it, that they don't wanna, you know, if someone's a small business owner, they don't want to discourage them from running their business, but, if it then, would like a commercial plate be allowed, or not a commercial, would a combination plate be allowed on a giant vehicle? Like if I had like a dump truck that would be used, okay, so if they stipulated that combo plates are allowed in residential zones overnight, but commercial plates are not allowed in residential zones overnight, then that would prevent the situation that we're describing where people could store a giant dump truck or like a coach bus or something like that, you know?
So the area, I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier, that it is in contradiction is in the use chart, which is Article 3C, permitted by zoning permit. This is not automatically allowed if, right, I misspoke, it is permitted
Okay.
by zoning permit. And it's commercial vehicle parking, only one commercial vehicle, exceeding 13,000 pounds of gross vehicle weight may be parked or garaged on a residential lot.
So there's still the
doesn't say-
special permit.
But it
is still
doesn't
in
say
It
place.
As a
doesn't say anything
zoning
about what
permit.
times of day though, this says the
zoning
times of
permit.
day, I mean,
Yeah.
parked or garaged during the day, it doesn't say anything about, like this would, having this in here prevents it from being stored there as like literally turning it into a storage yard.
right.
Of one.
of one, but
I
it
mean,
depends on how large the vehicle is. I mean, if it's just like someone's personal work truck, you know, that's like a pretty normal vehicle, but if it's like a giant dump truck, is that something that should be in a residential zone?
12.5 is the vehicle rating for combo plates.
I think they need to get more specific with this.
Well, there's still the special, the permit process, right?
There's
Even with this
over
removal.
that amount,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
I mean, you are allowed right now parking up to 6 automobiles on your lot by the current zoning regulations, as long as it's allowed in your driveway. So I guess you could also argue that that could be, you know, looks like a parking lot. It's just different.
So are we suggesting, if we're looking at each one of these, right, are we making any suggestions or comments to this, or is it acceptable because there's a permit process still in place? Do we feel otherwise? That's, how would be clear on what we're doing?
I don't like commercial vehicles in residential areas at all. That's my own and that's what I do for a living. I run commercial vehicles.
Right.
So,
Okay.
you know.
So do we wanna suggest that this not be deleted? But does that accomplish anything?
I mean, keeping commercial vehicles in residential zones, does that effectively make them commercial zones to a degree?
No, I don't think that there's more to it than that, yeah.
Visually
Mhm.
is,
Well,
it looks like a commercial zone.
right, I see.
You know,
We're-
whether it's zoned commercial or not, the visual, the
Yep.
aesthetic look of it, if you have 10 small business owners and they're all on a 2-acre lot or whatever, you know, and you see Joe's Excavation or, you know, cause he's gonna have his little trailer with his little excavator on the back with his F-450 sitting there that he pulls it around town with, you know, and I mean, part of me is like, listen, not trying to stop small businesses from doing stuff, but I also don't wanna look at my own commercial vehicle sitting in my driveway, so I can only imagine what my neighbors were thinking, you know? I mean, there is the stipulation of anything that's, you know, foul odor, so garbage trucks are out of the way, paving trucks are out of the way, but it says septic trucks can be there. And I don't know if you've all been around one of those trucks. It is not a sweet smelling truck, you know, but, I mean, I just think there should be some sort of limit per neighborhood, like per capita or whatever, for commercial vehicles.
How could you do that?
I don't know if
You
there's
need
any,
to
I don't think you
enforce
can.
that.
I'm not sure, yeah.
But, you know,
It's practical, yeah.
I'm
Who
just,
cares? It's your land.
I just see what like Stanford and Lower Fairfield County looks like with all of the commercial vehicles that are on properties of homeowners. Like, that's their
And
personal
septic trucks
vehicle.
are not allowed, I'm sorry. No
Oh.
taker trucks, similar type vehicles used for hauling
Right.
liquids, including but not limited to oil trucks, septic cleanout trucks shall be allowed.
Okay.
So they're not allowed.
So, just for the sake of moving on, and to your point, do we want to recommend then, as we're reviewing this back to the zoning, consider reinstating this? Is that what we're saying?
Well, if I heard Laura correctly, if we were to do that, it still appears elsewhere,
Right.
right? So,
So they
So-
can do it by zoning permit.
Permit.
okay.
And then, or special exception if it is allowed, if it's a larger truck, I'm sorry, I have to find the actual
Right.
size of that truck.
And that still remains even if this is deleted. That would be,
That is under the use table.
Right.
Okay, right.
mhm.
Okay, gotcha.
So I guess, are they deleting this because they feel it's in a sense redundant to what's already there? Or is it, or otherwise,
does the other thing say anything about overnight parking, though? That's my question.
Mhm.
Like, it says parking, but it doesn't say,
It does not say anything about overnight parking. It's that overnight parking is one of the reasons why it came up on whether, because it's been interpreted to be allowed
Okay.
with one commercial vehicle
Mhm.
for historically. So when anytime there was a question about it and they went before the zoning commission about overnight
Okay.
parking, because they're saying it's allowed in a residential zone, but you're not saying it's allowed overnight, but you're allowing it by special permit. To be consistent, they were taking out the overnight, or they were,
Okay.
yes.
So they allow it by day, but not by night currently, and they wanna allow it by night.
They have been allowing it by
By
night.
night. It just
It's
wasn't
not with the
explicit,
zoning.
Okay.
yeah.
Got it, got it.
Yeah.
Any consensus? John, what do you feel? I do want, you drive these things, so I do wanna hear what you have to say about it.
it- As a commercial driver,
Mhm.
I don't want you to regulate anything I do,
Yep.
to be honest,
Mhm.
right? I want to park my truck where I can easily access it, where I can also watch the fact that it's not going to be vandalized by, you know, and we all know here in Brookfield, we've had rash over the last couple of years of cars being vandalized right in your driveway. So, I make my money with my commercial vehicles. Would I love to be able to, yeah, still good, look out the window? Of course. But as a neighbor, I don't want to see your truck, let alone my own truck out there, for just the site value of it alone. So I'm torn on either side, because I can see the value on both sides of that coin. So I don't know if I can give a good answer to it, to be honest, you know, because you spend $75,000-$80,000 on trucks now. Pickup trucks are not cheap anymore, you know. And just on the vandalization part, a buddy of mine, literally just up in New Milford, had $8,000 worth of tools stolen out of his truck that was parked in a commercially zoned spot, you know. And he's not a big business. He's him and a couple guys, and you know, that just kind of crippled him for the next month. If that truck was parked in his driveway, would those be stolen? You know, so I understand it, but I think there's got to be, if they're going to limit it to the one, I think I'm okay
Okay.
with that. But I know, like, say, my condo unit, because we have a lot of guys that have commercial vehicles, they have to put a magnet over the side of the decal on the side of their truck if you're gonna park overnight there. You know, and previous companies that I've been a part of and owned, the magnets are cheap, they're like $10. And it just slaps on the door, and when you park at night, you pull it out from behind the seat, you slap it on the door, and voila, you no longer have a commercial vehicle. You know, in the morning when I got ready to go to the first job, pulled the magnet off,
Wheels
threw it
off.
in the back of the truck.
So
You
just to summarize.
So,
would we be okay with, should we have this, keep this deleted, or should we have it reinstated? That's really the question here. And by deleting it as they've proposed, I think there's still some coverage to at least to some degree for your concerns by what remains in the regulations.
I guess, honestly, I would have no real issue, because they're doing it already anyways. You know what I'm saying? It's, in most spots, you drive around town, you see people's commercial vehicles in their driveways already, in residential areas. If we're gonna limit it to one, then I'm good with that.
It definitely says, one.
Okay.
And
My thing though is, it says here though, unless otherwise approved by the commission, so it basically, yeah, I mean, I
But
guess.
they're gonna delete.
But
they're
they're,
deleting
Yeah,
that.
no, I know,
deleting
no,
it.
I understand that, so, but if we keep that, so like the
But the-
commission already has to approve it, then if someone's
no,
like,
this is, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is for your grossly big trucks.
yeah,
You know, your triaxle dump trucks, your,
Yeah.
you know, tractor trailer type trucks. I think what they're deleting this is for like your landscape guys, your plumbers,
okay,
you know, where it's vehicles, if I'm not mistaken, like 8,500 pounds.
So up to 13,000 pounds may be allowed, by zoning permit. Not to exceed 26,000 pounds can be allowed by special permit.
Okay.
Which is the public hearing.
So the 13,000 would be like your F-450s, your little lowboy dump trucks that you see pulling the small excavators and stuff like that. That'd be your 13,000 pound truck.
Right.
So that, they need a permit for it, is what that says.
So that would
And then
be
a
zoning
special permit for
that?
anything over 26,000.
Well,
So those measures remain in place, even by deleting those.
correct,
Right.
because that's
Yeah.
something separate.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
village chart.
So I think this is just getting your landscape truck, your plumber's truck, your, stuff like that. I think that's what this is exempting or pulling out.
Right, so would we, would we all be okay with deleting this
Yes.
for now, because we're covered otherwise?
I think so, yeah.
Sometimes I just have to
There we
talk
go.
myself.
All right, on to the next here. 3.18, I
page.
believe, is just a terminology that we touched on before, okay? However, at the bottom here, we do have some things that are deleted related to this.
No
Any-
longer, I'm sorry.
Please.
We're no longer allowed to regulate this particular type of group daycare
Okay.
by special permit.
Okay,
You are no longer allowed to view it any different than you would a single-family residential home.
all right.
So when they're offloading a special needs bus in the middle of Long Meadow blocking traffic, that's okay now.
They should be able to be blocking traffic, that's a different concern, and I wanna say it's up to 6. I mean, I have to look at the state definition again, you're not talking about a huge facility here, and we don't actually have any kind of say. Because we changed this to go with the Public Act, where it said all those special rules that you put into place, they're no longer legal. You're not allowed to view it that way, and it's coming down from the state. You have to view it the same way you would view a single-family home. So we view single-family homes in a residential district as a zoning permit, so this also.
Thanks, state.
State zoning, yes.
All right. On to page 7. Right, am I right place? Yeah, okay, make sure. I see,
Single-family residence in the TCD
So
overlay
we
zone.
added the A at the end of all of it. The TCD zone, allows both residential and it allows commercial development. So for a commercial development in the TCD zone, I can't remember exactly if I can get the setback here, I will try to grab it really quick. But the buildings are closer to the road. Now, it didn't really make sense if you were using it for a residential use. So if you wanted to build a single-family house, then you'd have to be like 10 feet from the road, and it just looks very strange. So this reverts back to the underlining R40 zone before the TC zone was created. So the residential homes will have to comply to the R40 zoning district setbacks, rather than the TCD ones, but only for residential.
Only for
Clarify.
single-family
Right.
residential, right?
Only single-family
Yeah.
resident.
Yep.
If a single-family residence in the TCD overlay zone, the R40 zoning setbacks apply, instead of the normal TCD ones.
there are still some, yeah.
Pardon?
I think there's still some, right? Residential. Or single-family residences in that TCD overlay zone.
It's only single-family residences.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
commercial, all
Yeah.
multi-mixed use has
Yep.
to comply with the other one.
With the TCD overlay, yep.
Okay. Any comments on this?
I think this makes sense.
Oh, it's 25 feet, that's what it was.
3 stories. Can we move on, or does anybody want to, we're good, all right?
That's fine.
Okay. Institution, parking space.
And then this here says not to
Okay.
exceed 50 square feet.
So under the standards, I see.
And
Under building sign standards not to exceed 50 square feet, okay. Comments on this? No? Okay.
So this one is just basically
adding
adding the word fill.
slash fill, and then adding the fill.
Because
Is this all terminology?
it's it's adding the word fill. It was always called an earthwork grading, I'm just trying to get my applications to align with my fee schedule.
Okay.
And also excavation permit was really like confusing to people, they
Right.
were just not
Right.
pulling it to fill, only to excavate.
Okay,
Right, dig the hole, but not
Yeah.
put anything in it. Yep.
okay. Page 10. Housekeeping? Okay.
Housekeeping, it's just adding, that it has to be consistent with stormwater,
Again,
It's right there.
deep stormwater, provisions.
Okay. We're good with the housekeeping?
Yep,
All right.
that's all.
So the highlighted area here, stormwater. So they added for both short and long term here,
Correct.
if I understand that
Mm-hmm.
correctly? I assume that's defined somewhere, what that means?
It's defined.
If that's all they're doing, then I would think we'd wanna, I'd hope that it'd be defined somewhere what that exactly that means, right?
I'm not
That could be
saying that's-
interpreted a lot of different ways.
But what it's pretty much saying,
Mm-hmm.
if I understand it correct, is that your stormwater management system must function for regardless the length of time, whether it is for intermediate time period, a long-term time, a short period
Infinite.
of time. It has to function. So they added the time period.
Right.
So whether or not it's temporary use or while you're doing something, your stormwater management plan must
Mm-hmm.
effectively work.
Yeah, they may wanna consider defining that just in case it'd be
Mhm.
tested at some point, you know? Mhm.
And then the EV, for electric vehicle charging stations, it says, modify point 3 by deleting exception for single-family residences to read the following.
It is 6.
So what's going on with that exactly?
The
I think-
Brookfield Building Department?
Yeah, so you have to get a building permit, because it's an electrical permit pretty much for the EV
Okay.
charging station.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, it said did not require a building permit, so,
Oh,
and it does.
Okay.
Okay,
and it should.
Now, does it define like what level of charging station it is? Like, for example, you can have a portable one that just plugs into a normal household outlet, which takes a very long time, but do you need a permit now to use that in your home? Or is this one that's like permanently fixed to the wall? Because there are just different types of EV charging stations, and also they don't really define what type of EV. I mean, is it like there, you can have a mower that is battery powered, and that's technically an electric vehicle, so.
I don't think it would be termed a vehicle because you can't,
I mean, this is
Use
electric vehicle, so that's.
right, but a lawnmower is not technically a vehicle, on any grand scheme of things. It's a tool,
Yeah,
it's apparatus. A vehicle is something I believe you can, I mean, I guess a ride-on
Some-
mower.
yeah, that's
could
what
be
I,
technically-
somebody
that's
put a
what I
license
meant.
plate on.
Okay.
I think a vehicle, by definition, is something that can be registered,
Yeah.
or it has to meet a certain mile per hour. I think, that's what I believe. I could be wrong.
I think they need to get more specific though with the types of EV charging stations they're regulating here, like what level it is, how much, you know, the capacity of this charger, because I understand there's like a fire risk if it's not wired into a house properly, but there are some that are, you know, that are
But
portable.
that could be, this is only one snippet from the regulations, yeah,
Yeah.
that could be addressed
So we need
elsewhere.
context and we need to look
Yeah.
at the regulation.
Mhm.
Which is 7.6B. Unfortunately, it's not in this copy of the regulations.
Let's see. So, okay, so it defines an electric vehicle. a motor vehicle capable of being driven by a battery-powered electric motor and has a battery that can be charged from an external source. So a motor, that could be a ride-on tractor. It doesn't say it has to be registered. It just says a motor vehicle capable of being driven by a battery.
Well, at that point, now you have to look up the definition of motor vehicle, because,
Vehicle charging station. A designated parking space. That's different.
Well, really, it's the charging station that needs to be defined, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Like
what's
what?
being regulated.
That's what we need to.
well, if you're wanting to know what type of vehicle it is, you need to first understand what the definition of vehicle is.
Right,
Motor vehicle,
but,
And they
right?
don't.
Instead of motor vehicle.
I don't think they define that.
but it's the charging station that is being,
Permitted.
regulated
Yeah.
here, yeah. Not the vehicle.
Right, but what he's saying is
I
there's
understand.
different type of charging stations for
Mhm.
different type of
It'll help you
vehicles.
define it.
So, at first you got to define what the motor vehicle is before you can define what type of charging station that you're looking at.
But I mean, yeah, it has to be how they define it here. I think it's.
Yeah, but they're gonna get their definition of motor vehicle probably from, which is basically a road vehicle powered by an internal combustion engine or other motor. I think it's gotta be a road vehicle.
Okay.
The real change was it originally did not, it said you did not need a building permit.
Mhm.
You actually, for any kind of change, and even if you rewired something in your house to allow
Mhm.
the electric, you would need a building permit because you need your electrical permit. For some reason, I don't know why they said you require a permit for all of these vehicle charging stations except in a single-family residential zone. So that it's,
I don't know. I just think
Okay.
that the way that they wrote it out, where like there are different types of chargers. Like there are portable ones. Like, do I need if I have a portable charger that I throw in the trunk of my car and I can plug it in at my friend's house, and then if I go back to my house, I can plug it in at my house. Do I need a permit to plug it into a normal outlet at my house because
I
it's?
think that's going a little bit.
Well, I mean, no, I mean it's a,
An
it's a
EV
serious
charging
question.
station,
It's
it would be a stationary
It's a
charging station.
It says stationary here.
It's,
Well,
I mean,
And-
we're commenting on these proposed
a
changes
charging
that we wanna
station,
expand on.
anything that's a
I
station is
just wanna
stationary.
Make sure I understand the definitions here, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, so they do outline the definitions.
Yes.
It says AC level 1 EVC station. Okay, good. That's what I was looking for. Okay.
Page 12, all right, we have a zoning enforcement officer, and I think that's what's being added in the top there, is that title, if I follow correctly.
that is correct.
Okay, there's a shall there under B1. Shall be.
So,
It sounds like there was language there that made it a little less
so originally,
obvious.
locations of, certificate of location approvals
Mhm.
had to go before the zoning board of appeals. It was some strange holdover by the state statutes. They finally passed it through the public act that made a lot of these changes happen, and that it goes before the zoning enforcement officers now, instead of the zoning board of appeals. Because the zoning board of appeals hears all the appeals, of the enforcement officer's decisions. And these location appropriateness, it was just kind of a strange holdover.
So the rest of this, I think, is just inserting the ZEO title into the process, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. 13, please.
Yeah, 13's the other end of the
Fill.
excavation fill.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on from that. And more of the fill.
Phil.
I've had my fill of this fill. And then lastly, 15, we have notice of violations. Just make sure I follow this correctly.
So what we ended up doing for this one is changing it. Before it said you should bring your, if you want to appeal the zoning enforcement officer's decision, you went before the zoning commission. actually, it should have read always the zoning board of appeals, cause that literally is
Mhm.
their job to
Get rid of
find the, so, we changed it, and, you know, these were all, just so you know, will be weighed in on by our town council as well, just to make sure everything is.
Oh,
not
after this
getting-
process,
yeah,
okay,
Just through the process,
All
just so everyone's aware.
okay. I'm good with this, I think it's more terminology there. So just to, what are we recommending, the one thing I made, and I know I made a mention of defining the,
Short and long.
short and long term. I think we agreed on everything else, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, okay. So then, as far as the referral from the planning, it would be that, I believe that with the exception of the one comment. Any other comments or any other things we should add to this? I don't think so, right? We're good?
I think we're good.
Yeah,
I think it's
okay.
all right.
So, I think we would issue a favorable response to this referral with the one comment regarding the adding a definition to the short and long term.
Your stormwater management, yep.
Okay? All right. Part B.
This is the short one.
Or part B of B, I guess. This is the moratorium, all right? So, is everybody familiar with what this is and what's going on?
Yes.
Okay.
We are, but I would, for the record, would you be able to kind of like summarize in a nutshell?
Yeah. I'm looking
Or
for-
someone
for the
perhaps?
page here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read some of this, or at least try to summarize what it has here, okay? So, there's language in here for putting into a moratorium on the development in the town center and also north and south of that along Federal Road, okay? That goes along with, I guess, some concerns about development that takes place, okay? They list the rationale there, and it's under C, which is to allow the zoning commission to pause and assess the current regulations and their impact on town infrastructure and the opinion that development is outpacing the town's, they name four, sewer capacity, water capacity, school population, and emergency services, including police, fire, and ambulance. And then the second part of the rationale is that it is the update of the planning, conservation, and development, which we know well, which is currently being developed by the planning commission, and how well the current POCD was supported in terms of development and application of the current regs, the town's residents' opinion on development going forward, and any new regs to reflect a revised POCD. Now, I just want to comment on that last piece, is that this was not something that we initiated or suggested to them. This is zoning making this comment, okay? We're going forward with what we do on our POCD regardless of this, okay? Does anybody want to comment on this at all, further on this? I guess further, the regulate, we should touch on that. The changes that are listed on page 2 here as to how they specify it. I can read quickly, just touch. The Brookfield Zoning Commission shall not accept or consider any application for multifamily developments in the TCD, CGN, and CGS districts, basically Federal Road Town Center District, south of Federal Road to basically up the Super 7 intersection and north to the New Milford line. The districts commencing from on the effective date of whenever this does or would go in place. And the moratorium is to allow zoning to pause and assess the current regulations and their impact, as we just mentioned here. All right.
So are they asking, like, do we think we should put dates on it? Do we think that we should?
So it's a referral to us, right? What is our opinion on this? Of course, you know, when these things take place, it's sort of an odd thing in that they're mentioned in the POCD, and usually when these things come to us, that's something we should consider, right? Is the existing one, right? Of course, we also have the housing plan as well, right? That's something that's out there as well. But, I don't know, what do you guys think about this moratorium concept?
I think, in all honesty, until they get those units that they've already built filled and like using all of the things that they're claiming or want to know about, I think we should hold off until December of 2025. You know, give it a real time, give it almost a year to see what the volumes are as far as sewer, water, you know, the population. I know like some of the one-bedroom spots aren't really looking for people with children, but as you get north of the Four Corners or city center or town center, you know, those are 2 and 3 bedroom units where they're gonna be bringing in more children and stuff like that. So all of this is, you know, we need, I hate to say sit back and watch, but sit back and observe, you know, and see what the volumes are, what type of toll is it taking on our already thin police force that we have now and first responders with the fire and ambulance. Because if we look at just what's been there, I'm sure we're gonna see an uptick in uses just from that group of services. You know, the fire, ambulance, and police over the last, we'll call it 2 years.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't want
Nope.
to cut you off.
I just think with the addition of, what do we have up there? It's almost like 1,500 units total, right? Going up that way. So I think we need to sit back and, for a better term, cool our jets, and let's see what ramifications these are gonna have. You know, do we have to put in a new process plant for sewer? Is Danbury gonna take that extra, you know, 2 million units a year from us? You know, because they shut us down a little bit before, restricting our flow that can go down to the waste process down there. You know, so.
Just, anybody else want to comment on this at all?
Do you wanna go?
I was just gonna say quickly, I mean, I think, I understand the rationale for like wanting to align it with the new POCD and yeah, and basically like any shift in priorities that may come out of this process, although I mean, there's just always going to be this tension between, I mean, they're saying it here, it's like people's opinions about development and the actual like reality of like what are the fiscal impacts on all of these things. And so the idea of like kicking it down the road a little bit to give them time to truly study it, like if say they want to pause it to assess, if they really have like a plan to do that like thorough fiscal impact analysis and come back with like, you know, the results so that we can have a real conversation about it and it's not just, you know, people's impressions and opinions, then I think that makes sense. But I don't know, I mean, there are, from what I understand, you know, these state regulations that also determine housing production and that sort of thing, and just putting a moratorium on it, I think, to quell the like politics feels a little bit like we're just postponing the inevitable. I mean, things are going to have to, like, housing will need to have been built. But the rationale for like aligning it with these other strategies makes somewhat, you know, sense to me. But my one like, you know, kind of thing I'm left with is, so the proposal we just had it come in this evening is that within the area that would be like, would they basically, when they go to the zoning commission, are they gonna be told like, look, there's this moratorium and we're not even gonna consider your proposal? Maybe I'm confusing things, but like for this multifamily.
I wouldn't
this
read into, I wouldn't read
yeah.
into that necessarily, no.
I think he was in C1.
He was in a C1,
So it
yeah.
would be
It's not the
affecting
federal road,
that-
okay.
that
So it's
particular
just within
s-
these,
Those three zoning
That's,
districts.
these
yeah,
three-
that's
okay.
south,
Okay.
that's south of
South.
the,
Okay.
Yeah.
so
of
I
the
mean,
areas
in that
concerned,
sense, then
yeah.
it's not, you know,
Mhm.
squashing.
It's not
It's
for
not
all
squashing,
zones, it's-
yeah, it's for these three. So in that sense,
Mhm.
I think giving some time to like really make sure it's truly aligned with and reflective of this new plan makes sense. But you know, I just, my reservation is always like postponing the inevitable just because it's not palatable, but we need to be doing this work and having these conversations, so let's get real
I
about
didn't
it.
mention, in
Yeah.
case I'm sure you guys know, but just, they're gonna have a public hearing at
Oh,
their
yeah. Mhm.
their next meeting, which is a week from tonight.
Mhm.
So they're gonna have that take place, all right?
Mhm.
And I do not expect it to close anytime,
Right.
because they want input. from-
Which I'm hoping doesn't interfere with, we're gonna need public input as we go along with the POCD at points. And we'll probably be addressing some of this as well, you know, with the POCD. So I'm hoping that doesn't interfere with that. I mean, that purpose of that hearing is to address this issue that's at hand, which is the moratorium. Whereas when we're looking forward, you know, with the POCD. So I'm hoping there's no confusion there and that doesn't interfere with our ability to gain feedback that we want at any point.
I have one question.
Mhm.
Do you know when I know Brookfield's had the 830G moratorium in place for a number of years now. Do you know when that would have to be renewed by the state?
I believe it's 2026, if I remember correctly, for
Okay.
the affordable plan.
Now, the reason I ask about that is because if the state, if Brookfield implements a moratorium on multifamily development, would that discourage the state from renewing the 830G moratorium? Because, you know, like, the whole reason they give an 830G moratorium, at least to my understanding, correct me if I have the wrong interpretation of it, but it's because like, if they view that a town or a city in Connecticut is acting in good faith and working with developers to allow some multifamily development, they're more inclined to grant an 830G moratorium. And if they see Brookfield as putting moratoriums on market rate multifamily units, then would they be less inclined to grant us in the future another 830G moratorium?
It's all calculated by points.
Okay.
So it's how many housing units based off of the population,
Mhm.
it's all math.
And wasn't I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but the current moratorium was based on the 2010 census count, right? And now with the 2020 numbers, they've been, like, our target, like, number of units will have increased.
It will have increased.
Will have increased, so it's like, we may still be acting in good faith, but we maybe we hadn't reached, we're no longer at that, like, threshold that we were a few years ago, because we have a new number that's higher, that's kind of acting as the basis for our 10% of, you know,
It's
whatever it
always
is.
a moving
Yeah,
target.
it's a moving target, yeah. Oops.
Sorry about that, what it just did.
I just have a comment. If we're gonna put a moratorium in those three districts, I think it's gonna shift development
Into
to
the other
other sections of Brookfield that may not wanna see that development going into those sections necessarily.
Yeah.
So it's still going to be governed by the zoning regulations. For example, what they were discussing
Yep.
tonight, it's a smaller level
Mhm.
development.
Mhm.
I think it's TCD and the gateway districts are the ones that allow for the higher density
Right.
residential developments overall.
Mhm. But, yeah, to your point, would they start to then target other parts of the town? Yeah, I've always felt sort of in a way that if you're gonna have development in Brookfield, and I guess you have to have some small degree even, keep it on Federal Road, you know? So, yeah, hopefully it wouldn't cause such things to be sought to be built in other places. So that's a thought. The piece on the planning, I don't agree with that piece of it simply because every town in the state is required to update their POCD. and they don't all require moratoriums. So I'm not sure, that piece of it. I mean, I understand there's some things we got to work on and such, but I'm not sure if that is necessary.
Warrants.
Well, I think
Yeah.
why they have that in there is because we're at the end of our old
Yep.
POCD.
Yep.
I think if this was coming up and we were still 3 years away from
Sure.
the end, or we just did we're 2 years out from it in the 10 years, I think this is just so there's a general idea of where we're looking to go. So I think that's why they're putting that in there to just, I don't want to say quell, but, we don't know where we're going.
Not yet.
So by doing this, I think by seeing what our plan is, we can get a better idea. And that's why having the moratorium,
Right.
I think that's why we're listed in there, because we're so close to the end of our tenure. So I don't
I think what triggered this, honestly, though, is
Was my email.
We sent the emails to all the commissions and boards and said, before we go forward with this POCD, we just want to take a look back, right? And just here's what took place and what was written in 10 years ago, right? How do we do? Not a matter of pointing fingers or anything, but just what can we learn from it, right? Right? And I think that sort of triggered that. Well, hey, you know what? We had this idea and it really turned out to be something else,
Yep.
and I think that's why you're seeing some of this, which, maybe, well, I guess it's a good thing in a sense, but, I guess my comment on this really is, I'd like to see a stronger argument or a stronger case presented. I'd like for it to be a little more fact-based. And there's a couple things in here which they could potentially do, right? Rather than when you're listing these, the rationale, make your case stronger. That'd be my suggestion to the zoning commission. Make it stronger. If you're citing the sewer capacity, be specific. I mean, we know it's there. There's numbers and things that we can list, right? Same thing with the water. I'm not, the concerns that may be there. I'm not sure about that. The school population, I've heard different things there, so I'm not sure what it actually is factual there. Emergency services, is there data that's there, that could swing either way. I've heard different stories in that regard as well. So I think, to me, that's my concern with this is how the argument is presented. That's what I have. That's what I'm concerned with. If this is restated in a different way, then it's not, you want to make factual decisions, fact-based decisions, right? You don't want to just have it be, mob rule, You want to have things behind it, and I think you'll get a better support too if you do that, rather than just, well, I feel it's overcrowded. Okay, we may feel that way, but what substance can we put there?
But the only issue with that is you're going on data of what's already here, right, of filled units. We now have 1,500, 2,000 units that are built, but there's nobody in them. So we can't put data on something that isn't there yet. But as these get filled, like this moratorium has to happen sooner than later because they want to put a 2025 date on it, right? So I think if we hold off and as these units get filled in this whole section of Federal Road there, I think that's when we can start to pull our numbers. And I mean, does it have to be December of 2025? I would like to see that, but is it reasonable?
Well, the
Maybe not.
POCD should hopefully be done by
Right.
that time, yeah.
But we'll also be able to see the volumes coming through the sewer, the water, how many more kids are being put into our schools that are pretty crowded as it is now. Even with the building of the new school, I was over at Wisconsin. I thought I still saw some of those temporary trailers in the back.
They're empty.
Are they empty? All right, so I don't have any children in that school, so, I didn't know if they were still using. But we don't want to be too late to the party also. If we're
You
already
could argue that we
overwhelmed,
already are, if that's,
Huh?
you could argue that we already are then, if that's the case, right? If
Well,
we feel we need a moratorium.
absolutely.
Right.
I think we are at that point now,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to get a lot more coming at us, and I think it'll be too late to stop the new builds if we need to. You know, with all of this stuff, we can get all the numbers you want for pre-existing or what's happened before us, but we can't put together numbers for projected.
Well, I
You know.
think there's numbers and data that are out there. I think that they can use to make their
But
case stronger.
all numbers can
you
be
know?
manipulated, so
Okay.
whatever side of the argument you wanna be on.
Yeah,
You know, you can manipulate that number depending on your argument.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is you don't know until it's there. You know, until Danbury says, whoa, you're at capacity, and now we have 15 new units being built, and we can't put any more on that line, you know?
I'm saying that gives the substance, though, of whatever decision we make. Otherwise, it's just based on feel, right? And that's what I'm trying, you can feel a certain way, but can we put some, and I think this information does exist, that they could add to this. That's my point.
They can only put what we've done, not what, anything
Well, they know
else is
what's-
speculative.
You know what's already gone before the boards. You know what's already been passed. You know, you have a lot of that stuff, you know? And I do know there's a lot of information out there, what's expected.
Like WPCA, for example, on their website, they'll have
Yeah.
they have their little sewer
Yeah.
capacity things, so what's anticipated to be filled, what's still expected. So some of the information is
Yeah.
is somewhat available. It will always be changing, but it's always going to be changing.
Sure, yeah.
So, but overall, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just trying to make sure I'm understanding. It seems that you are in support of having a moratorium. We're in support of moratorium's argument to be more factually based rather than just.
Yeah,
So-
that,
okay.
so as it's presented to us right now, no, I don't think it's a strong case. I think it could be. I think it could be. You know, and that's what I would like to have seen. Now, they may have just shortened this just to make it easier to present to us, right? But if they're going to present that to, a public hearing, if they're gonna present that, you know, out beyond that and make a decision, I'd like to see that there be facts behind, or, you know, whatever, in addition to whatever that public feeling or public, outcome might be.
Yep, this is just the language because all the moratoriums go
Yep.
within the zoning regulations.
Of course.
Yeah.
Basically saying that they'll study it, right, and to provide that,
Mm-hmm.
to provide that information.
Right.
Do you have a sense, having, like, attending their meetings, are they actively thinking about, like, doing, like, are they talking about that assessment and how they will
They definitely
complete
want
it,
to
or,
look
yeah?
and try to pull some factual data. I do get the feeling on how particularly those categories. There is an emergency services study, we're waiting to hear, you know, I think one was released, I wanna say this past winter. I think there's an additional one that's coming out. There are, again, the sewer we now have updated,
Right.
with,
Right.
we have updated, we have more capacity as well. Their moratorium got lifted, but that will go back into play the second that we're out of the flow. But, and the other thing was the POCD, with that was the TCD district.
Yeah.
When the original POCD, or the old POCD that we were, you know, writing was created, a lot of the focus was on the TCD district
Yep.
and what they wanted. Well, now that area has kind of been infilled, so
Yeah.
Where are the
Yeah.
other,
you know,
opportunities?
that's what they're kind of wanna
Yeah.
see where you go with it.
Right.
Okay.
They want a timeout, yeah, timeout.
Another thing is that I think it should also touch on infrastructure capacity as it relates to roads, because, you know, you have to look at it from a regional perspective as well, like how much traffic does this create on Route 7 at the 784 interchange? You know, if you have 1,000 more people that are commuting to work every day using Interstate 84, does that create a strain on that? So I think they should also include something about infrastructure as it relates to roads and other forms of transit.
Yeah,
I think you mentioned
there
that.
could be, when I mention, you know, facts and data, it could be go beyond the four that they list here as well,
Mhm.
yeah, certainly. Anybody, any comments down this side of the table? No? Okay. So how do we feel, I guess, that just to see if we can get to a place here? I've expressed my thoughts. I would, my thoughts are conditional based on the things that I mentioned before. How about you folks?
I think we push ahead with the moratorium, personally.
Okay.
My only one other concern though is, I know that it's, as you said, it's the 830G, renewal essentially is based entirely on numbers. Would this hinder Brookfield's ability to meet the necessary benchmark to receive another 830G moratorium in the future? I think that's something we need to look at, because I think if the state didn't grant us another 830G moratorium, then you would have a lot of development happening, and it would totally disregard a lot of the things that we're talking about in the POCD. So it's we don't want to put ourselves in that position either by trying to mitigate, or we're trying to at least understand, what the development patterns are. We don't want to end up exposing Brookfield to a lot more development than we would have ever anticipated.
Yeah. Where are you folks leaning? Or do we?
I can't vote, so
Oh, okay.
it doesn't matter what I think.
It matters, but yeah, it matters.
I mean, I think I agree with you, Scott, that well, sure, more like evidence would be helpful. Maybe they don't have it at this moment, but if to basically like create a process to get to the substance behind the opinion, so that we can have like a truly deliberative, conversation about development and what that would mean, so that as y'all are going through the POCD update process, and you're doing that, and they're figuring, and they're hoping to align that the zoning commission is hoping to align with that, that we could just have have a real conversation about the real stakes, not just people's knee-jerk reaction to development. So
I guess I'm thinking too,
Yeah.
if there are some people who are looking for housing, right? What would this say to them? And then, it's, at least if we had those facts, that's a better, at least you have something, some answer, some response to them, rather than just, this is how the town feels. All right. I'm not sure if I'm trying to see if we can find a consensus on something here. I think Linda, you'll be voting on this. Any comments or
I
anything?
would be leaning towards John.
Okay. Okay.
Because you can talk about putting substance, but already I think it was last week, on the Facebook site for the town services, all 3 ambulances were out at the same time, and that's gonna happen. The more people you have, the more emergency services you're gonna need. That's a given. So, as far as that goes, as far as the other thing goes with the schools, I don't know what the ages are of these kids, or you can't project that
Right.
at this point, so it's hard to say. I mean, do you wanna be Bethel? I mean, drive down Stony Hill, that's outrageous, but.
All right, we're a little bit split. I'm trying to see where we should come up with some language or something. that
Do you
would
think
work for everybody.
we should include something that says that they should have some sort of understanding of the proposals that are about to be put forth, just to make sure that, we don't end up preventing another 830G renewal, because that's my big concern. I mean, how do all of you feel about that?
I'm not sure how that plays into this.
Be-
To be
yeah,
honest.
because let's say that over the
Um,
next year, I don't know, they were going to build another, 100 units, and those 100 units would have allowed us to meet the requirement for the 830G renewal in 2026, but if we don't allow those 100 units built, then the state will deny an 830G renewal, or an 830G moratorium renewal in 2026
But I think we've
That's my
already
concern.
surpassed,
Yeah.
we've
Have
already
we?
surpassed
Sure.
our
Okay.
threshold for the last,
So,
I think 10 years. Our town grew the most in Connecticut
Right.
with the
Or in our area.
affordable housing.
Yeah.
So we're well past, I think we have a few years where we can get that 830 moratorium.
I would just-
and moratorium, and I think we will still have some extra affordable housing that we're already getting credit for.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we're not
agree.
at the 10%, but.
I just want
We're
confirmation
well
now
above that.
that, you know,
Like 5.
Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
You're
we're-
under 5.
Yeah.
is that
We're
enough?
better than most towns in the area, but
We
we're
are,
not
but
at
it's
that.
still
Oh,
low.
I don't know where you guys are getting your numbers from.
No,
but-
that's from, that's the affordable, yeah. Those numbers have been presented to us by Greg.
30% of the people that are living above the old Four Corners and Town Center, 30% of those units are filled by affordable housing recipients.
But you have to realize something with this, with affordable housing, for each of the, 30%.
The Section 8 stuff, yeah.
It seems like you're building, well, affordable,
For-
Section 8's different. Seems like, oh, great, we just added 30%. No, you actually added 70% more to your growing number that's going to be calculated.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's
Yeah.
always a moving
shifting,
Yeah.
yep.
Well-
target.
Yeah.
Unless it's 100% affordable
Right.
units,
Right.
you're not getting any credit.
Wow.
You know, isn't that a weird way to look at it? But
That's
But
correct.
I'm just going on, because I know some people that are in that development and with the, yep, that's a big word I'm looking for, sorry. I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning. That are trying to fill these units. And there are people not moving in there because of the public assisted housing that's going on there. And they're not going in there, so in order to fill them, they're getting more of the public assisted personnel moving in there. So that's where I'm saying we're at 30% in that, never mind it being affordable housing, but public assisted housing.
there's only certain things that we can factor in as far as
Right.
percentages that we get
Yeah.
credit from for the state. They only look at certain numbers, and they meet certain requirements as far as percentages, 80% or 60%.
So to address the point that Mark brought up on this, right, I don't believe this would be directly affected by that.
Okay.
Right?
If I could just like summarize basically
Yeah.
what I want to include, I just
Sure.
want confirmation that, but if we were to build no more affordable housing by, I don't know, December 31st, between now and December 31st, 2025, that we would still be eligible
Approved,
for.
right, it's only approved, right?
Approved, if we were to
Yeah.
approve no more between now and 2025,
Mhm.
then we would still be eligible to receive an 830G moratorium in 2026. I just want to make sure, like with the numbers we have now, could we get a moratorium in 2026? That's all I want
That
confirmation on.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be able to, just to tell you, like, there's a lot of studies that go into calculating on whether or not we're eligible. That project went hand in hand with our affordable housing plan. And if we go forward with the, let's say, affordable housing plan with the POCD, you might get the data that you're looking for, but I don't think we can actually sit here and say 100%.
Whether they will or not.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
Yeah, okay. So, I would like to, my thought is, again, I don't wanna repeat myself, because it's getting late. But I'm trying to see something that we could agree on. Would you agree that the argument would be stronger if we could include some, further, data to it? That's really
Yes.
what I would like to, that's where I'm going, is where I think I could get behind it, but I'd like to be a conditional, that it's more like, more or less encouraging zoning to provide more facts to this, when you present it. It would be an approval conditioned on that, which I think they can achieve. I think that's reasonable to expect them to do. Can everybody get behind that?
I
Yes.
would prefer to table it until they gave us that information. I'm not doing an approval based on,
Well, we're not,
make-
yeah, it's more or less, first of all, like all referrals that we give to zoning,
right,
they have their choice to accept it
Or not.
or
I
not, or
understand.
do what they want.
but I'm not comfortable
Yeah.
giving an approval based on conditions.
Well, we can do, I mean, as a general rule, we can do that.
Oh, no, I
Yeah,
understand,
yeah.
but I'm still not, it doesn't, at that point, doesn't really matter. If we're gonna say it's based on conditions, they're gonna do what they want anyways. So,
Yeah,
so,
but
I mean, I think,
I think in a sense, what I'm hoping anyway, is that this is a way to achieve what you'd like to see happen and what I would like to have. I think it's a way to get both across. I would approve it, but I would, with the condition, and again, they can choose to disregard it. But or even a suggestion to provide more factual support to this proposal when they have their public hearing and when they finalize it. Don't overlook that first part where we're approving.
Yeah, I think if they can just back it up with some
Yeah.
information.
Is that,
would be great.
Linda, can you get behind that?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, see if we can get unanimous, but I understand.
I don't think you'll get my vote on that.
No?
No. I just,
Okay.
I don't think the facts are gonna
Mhm.
do anything. They're not gonna help us because they're all speculative numbers,
Mhm.
period.
Okay.
So, and seeing what's going on in town and seeing everything, I think we need to put a hold until,
But you be getting that, but.
but I don't, I think the numbers are speculative and but
I think the numbers.
my faith in people at this point in time for putting out true numbers are very minimal. We'll put it that way.
I'm trying to avoid like the mob pitchfork kind of thing, you know, I'd rather like, here's some numbers. Oh, okay, that's great, we can all get behind
Yeah, I
it.
want this to be
Yeah.
backed up with some factual
And
information,
that's
not just
fine.
like saying,
I just-
Yeah.
yeah.
If I could refer just really quickly, I think what you're saying, Scott, is that the approval that we're talking about would be approving their request for the moratorium.
Yes,
So like,
But
we're
based
not,
on them
we're not
giving us different
approving, like,
numbers.
which they don't have.
They don't even
But-
have to
Which
listen
they-
to
I'm
us,
just saying.
you know,
Yeah.
they could
So,
say, we're not doing
I
any
think at this
numbers."
point, we either approve it or say no. I think it's either favorable or unfavorable. And the numbers aren't gonna truly matter.
I work with numbers every day, so.
But I'm just saying,
That's a little hard
for
one for me to
this is-
swallow, sorry.
We're not talking monetary stuff at
Yeah.
this point, right? It's all speculative numbers. How much waste is coming out into our sewers? How much water is gonna be drank by the new 2,000, you know, and then whatever prospective buildings they wanna build? It's all speculative and conjecture because nobody knows. You know, my house runs through a hell of a lot more water and sewage than, and it's my wife, me, and our one kid,
How do you know that?
huh?
How do you know that?
Because I see the habits of my wife and
Yeah,
my
but
son.
how do you know it?
Huh?
How do you know it?
I live in a condo and the walls
Right,
are
but how do you
thin.
know it?
I
Dave?
hear what my neighbors are doing.
Right,
But-
but how do you measure it?
Huh?
How do you know it?
But you can go by what the toilet flushes. If the toilet flushes
Do you
6
count
times.
them?
But, huh?
Do you count the flushes?
If I'm home and bored, absolutely.
That's data.
But the
Citizen
thing
science.
is, what I don't know is how many times they did it when I was at work for 16 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I know what goes on in my house,
Mhm.
but I can't tell what's going on in your house because
But
Only
now
if I
I'm
share the data.
speculating what
Only
you're
if I
doing.
share the
you can
data.
get pretty accurate with an
It sounds like an
average,
opportunity
you know? I mean,
for
like, you
some
take the average
crowdsourced,
person, they drink this amount of water, they go to the
citizen
bathroom
science.
this number of times a day, you get within a margin of error, you know, like, it's not,
But all numbers can be manipulated. Period.
I was hoping we could get to something
let's-
unanimous. I'm gonna make a motion here, if you don't mind. I'm gonna, because it's getting late.
Oh, I know.
So, my motion is going to be to approve, I guess favorable,
Yeah, okay.
favorable, right? In favor of the referral to us from zoning on the moratorium. However, with, how do I word this one? Condition or suggestion. With those, a strong recommendation that additional factual evidence be included in what is presented to the town at the public hearing, and in what they finally, how they finally state this moratorium in the, within the rationale that's provided. Is that clear at all?
Yes. I'll second that.
You'll second
Yeah.
that? Okay. Ayes? Nays? Nay? 032? Okay. Okay. Well, at least we can move on, right? So, oh, now we're on to the Homeland Tower, all right?
Might I ask for a 5-minute continuance?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Timeout, 5
Please.
minutes? Yes? Okay.
Appreciate that.
Where we are, actually, we need to take a step backwards. We're still in 3B, however, we just voted on Z-24-43. It was noted to me that we did not vote on Z-24-42, which was that long list of proposed regulations, okay, that we went over earlier. So we just need to make a motion and a vote on, I thought we did, but approving all those regulations with the one comment, which was regarding, where is it again? again?
It's in C,
Clarifying.
Stormwater Management 6.8,
Yes.
C3D.
Yes. 6.83 C3D. So, anybody like to make a motion to refer back to the zoning commission that we look favorable in the proposed zoning changes with the one comment for 6.8 C-3D, defining further,
In case tested.
short and long term. Maybe I'd like
I'll
to
make-
make that motion as I
I
just
will-
stated.
I'll make that motion, but as long as I don't have to restate it. A motion for a favorable, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, 5-0. Okay, great. Okay, on to 3C. This is the 8-24 referral regarding the Homeland Cell Tower on town property. We discussed some of this 2 weeks ago. And we did receive a response to the questions that were raised from the first selectman on there. I hope everybody had a chance to read that. So I don't have what we had last week, but you may recall what was proposed was, first they wanted to put a tower next to the high school. Then there was consideration to put a tower on top of the hill directly behind the high school. And now the new location, there were two of them, right? There was C and there was D, which would be, I guess, behind that pond, behind the high school, which you can see from Long Meadow, up on that hill. And the idea there that it's further away from the high school, isolated more so from residences. When we had that discussion, we raised several points and several questions, and then we have the responses to those. Okay. The first one was the one I'm asking about the benefits, I think, which I think we'll get when that will come. They have a request in with the siting council for coverage and coverage maps and things like that. I think the second one, was one that John, you had mentioned regarding the access roads. Right, the second one there. I think you asked that, right?
No, I believe that was Mark.
Was that Mark? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, okay.
My question was the gaps in coverage. What is it gonna cover?
Okay, so that would be addressed in the top part, which they're gonna get that information when they get it from the siting council. Okay, okay.
My only question that I think I asked that wasn't included in the questions that were sent was about if they would consider putting the generator farther away from the tower itself and along with the generator, the propane tank, so that a truck wouldn't need to go up into the woods on this access road if they needed to fill it.
Was that on the, I remember we discussed that, yeah.
And then that would just be connected to the electrical wire that's already running up to the tower, and then it wouldn't have to be directly next to the tower. Just for ease of access.
Let's check in the minutes.
I don't think that it was ended up making it into the minutes either.
Yeah,
now that I look
that's
at
why
it.
I'm looking to see if there was.
Yeah, there was, I think it was,
Mhm.
now that I'm looking at it again, I'm not gonna be a stickler about this or anything, it's just, I
Mhm.
don't think it was, when it said about like the pipe, like that was just, it was more along the lines of
Mhm.
the, electrical wiring going up to it, it wasn't about, whether or not there should be a pipe, but it doesn't matter.
I think the question was, the other question was, how close to the residences, there's one there, it's 1,300. Coverage map, as I mentioned, again at the bottom there. They're gonna provide that information at the end of, this month.
Okay.
So, I don't know, if we had any time to further think about this and what our thoughts might be. As it was, the one thing I can add, and it's mentioned here too, yeah, it's the fire EMS. They're pushing to have this because of gaps of coverage. And I did hear someone from fire mention that there was a recent incident where that actually came into effect, so.
Now, are we leaning more towards suggesting option C or option D?
I believe it was C, that's the one that comes in by the tennis courts. D
Yes.
is the one that crosses over more of the wetlands.
Right, that's the one that's furthest away, furthest away from the school, if I
Yes.
remember correctly, right? Do we have happen to
This,
have that?
this
map?
pretty much just summarizes the
Um,
impact.
I believe C was technically the furthest away by the way you came in from, next to the maintenance barn, by the tennis courts up that end.
D is the furthest.
D is
I wanna
further,
say
yeah.
D is further from the high school.
Right.
In a longer road.
And a longer route. A more circuitous, right?
Yes, and then C was closer to the high school, but both of them are over 1,500 feet from the high school.
C had the more direct route from the high school,
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Up that
From the
access
back,
road, yeah.
the back area, the storage, I believe, or something's there, right?
Right, there's the
Yeah.
maintenance shed and, the
Right.
maintenance
Yeah.
barn.
Right, right. So it's already well, at least the base of it it exists right now.
Right.
Right, okay.
And I believe that had the least amount of, change in elevation from the road to the
Right.
site.
Right,
Where the other one comes in, and you're actually crossing through more of the wetlands, and I believe there were more trees that would be removed,
right,
from the D site than the C site.
okay. Yeah. So I guess, does this answer all the questions that we needed in order to do whatever we wanna do, I guess?
Well, it didn't give us our coverage area.
No, that would take place, I guess, the end of
Right.
August.
And then, I mean, the fire and EMS have been asking for a new tower for at least 10, 15 years that I'm aware of. You know, so them putting out that they need a new one, that's, you know, old news. I hate to say it like that. Yes,
Right.
we do need it. What was the other one? The property, the town still has access to the use of it regardless, so. I think the only thing they really didn't answer was the coverage portion.
Which, yeah, which I think they will have, and I think that when we had this discussion before, you know, my thought was I wanna make sure that they do fully, disclose, you know, the benefits of it, you know, what would be that coverage, you know, what exactly we gain from it, you know?
Well, that's
Yeah,
my biggest thing.
The other, I guess, the other consideration though is also, you know, what happens if this is rejected, right? If that takes place. And then what does Homeland do at that point, right? And because as it was told to me, all right, is that this is coming. That's what I was told, regardless.
And it's what?
That this tower is coming, no matter what we decide to do. And this allows us to have at least a say as to where, to a degree. That's what I've been told. That basically they can make a determination that one is needed. We're gonna put one somewhere in that part of town. And we can say, all right, well, this is our choice of what's available, or they decide.
But, I'm sorry, but
Mhm.
what can prevent them from coming back in 6 months and saying, we need to put in another cell phone tower and then another cell phone tower.
Yeah.
So.
I asked that, yeah, that was one of the things I asked and as well, yeah. I agree, I'd like to have more of a long-term, idea
Because
what they
let's
need.
say if they're gonna say, oh, if you're not gonna say yes, then we're gonna go and approach one of the residents.
Mhm.
But they can do that all the time, like, they don't, if they don't have to ask the permission,
Right.
who's to say that they're not gonna do that,
Mhm.
going forward?
Right.
Um,
In this case, we know that they want to put one in that general area, right? So, do we want to, guide them to a certain direction, or do we want to just let them decide on their own?
And then for EMS, I mean, what did we do in 1985? You know,
Walkie-talkie, I don't know.
Like,
There were two-way towers, like, individual radios. We used them in the garbage industry, they used them in all
Yeah.
types of, transportation. But, I mean, that technology is not obsolete. I mean, it's still out there, there are still tons of companies that are using it.
Mhm.
And the upkeep on it is, I hate to say it, it's cheaper,
Mhm.
than buying new cell phones or new cellular devices every 3 years because, you worked out of your operating systems, you know. We do need to make sure that our EMS and everything have the tools they need to, take care of all these new residents we're getting up the road, So, I mean, the cell tower's coming, we all know that. We all complain when we hit that dead spot and we can't use our phone or our call drops. So, just convenience alone, we're all gonna bitch, excuse my language, if we don't have self-service in that area. And there are people that are down in that little valley. My question is it going to help Bridgewater more than it's gonna help Brookfield from its location?
We have a larger population, so I would assume.
But I'm just saying,
Mhm.
there's virtually no cell service in Bridgewater. Why are we not talking to Bridgewater to put it on their side of the lake? It'll help that little spot that we have, that we need that help without all the aggravation,
Yeah.
And they have plenty of space over there that's undeveloped,
Right, right.
But that's
But
why I
I'm s-
wanna see the coverage match. If it's gonna help us more than just say like the 8% of that area that's not getting service or whatever the percentage is. If it's gonna help Bridgewater more, we should be talking more to Bridgewater. Can we put it on your side?
I'm sure they would say, well, just based on population alone, we have way more people than Bridgewater, and so more people would be affected,
Yeah, but our population on the other side of Candlewood Lake is not the same as what's on the other side of Lake Moanoa.
I
You
mean,
know what I'm
I-
saying? If you're gonna go percentages of people help, Bridgewater has virtually no signal in most of Bridgewater.
Okay.
I mean, my question though, John, is how would it help Bridgewater more if it's going in Brookfield and it's going to be around Brookfield residents? I mean, I get what you're saying, but like, I just,
Because the way that the cellular vibes, or not vibes, but,
signal.
signal works is, I think it's more of a clear shot into Bridgewater with, like, is it going to help our people up by Regula, or however you say that road again? And then down on, what is it, Pilgrim or whatever, and everything down in that valley. Is it gonna help them there when there's the big mountain right there, and that's where we need our cell service?
I would just say this, that I think that if the tower folks and, the siting council and all that, if they've determined a certain spot is where they need, I don't think they're gonna invest this time and effort in a place that's not gonna be efficient.
I think what they're looking for is the
Yeah.
place with the least amount of pushback. It's not so much
I don't know.
the best
I-
need. Because there's other spots that are in better spots that would help more of a larger area than the swamp behind the high school.
They put, I mean, they put, for whatever reason, they've determined, that this is the area. You know, I believe, well, I don't wanna believe it, but it sounds like that's what's happening, you know? And if they, yeah, you would be proven true if we denied this and then they ran over and built one in Bridgewater, but you know what, I don't think that's happening. I think instead they're gonna build one in Brookfield.
Well, they're gonna build one in Brookfield because there's plenty of people who wanna have a cell tower in Brookfield.
Well, yeah,
It's the
but,
path of least resistance,
Right.
is what it is. Bridgewater being a higher per capita town, I don't want that in my backyard. We've seen it in other places, but take that all aside. I wanna see a coverage map to see if it's gonna help us more than
yeah,
a minute amount. If it's gonna help 40%, 60% better coverage for our EMS and everything, absolutely.
I think
for it.
if when they get the coverage map and all that data back at the end of August, and it shows that it doesn't cover Brookfield, then, you know, and I don't know how this all works, but I would think the town would be in a much better position to fight against it, you know, because they don't have proven benefits, right? But I don't know, you know, maybe that happens, but I gotta think that they've done their homework on this, you know? I mean, this is what they do, you know? And maybe I'd like for you to be right on this, right? But I don't think it's gonna happen, yeah.
Well, that's my feelings on it.
Yeah.
I think we're the path of least resistance in this area.
See, all they gotta do is find somebody where hey, you know, selling a house, sure, throw a tower on here. I don't mind, I'm getting out of here.
Right,
You're
well,
not- You're not doing that, right?
No, I'm a renter, so you don't have to worry about me, yeah.
But that's why I'm saying that the path of least resistance is here,
Right.
you know? Right across the lake, well, the river portion of the lake, you have a guy who just spent, I think it was $110 million, building his house, his wife a southern home when they lived in Washington.
Yeah.
She wanted something more south, so he bought that piece of property. And the only reason I know that is we pulled 75 dumpsters out of there while he was building. But, you know, he's got more money than he knows what to do with. So he can fight having a cell tower put in his backyard. You know what I'm saying? And the people in that area have, I don't want to say more means than what we have, but there are some families that, you know, hey, a few $100,000 in the bank would be real nice.
Yep.
You know, it would take, so that's why I'm saying the path of least resistance. You know,
I mean, I think that applies to both Brookfield and Bridgewater, though there are definitely people in Bridgewater who would be receptive to hearing about a proposal like that if they came to a private landowner and said, oh, we'll give you X amount of money to put a tower here. So I don't think that's really a Brookfield versus Bridgewater thing. I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is, you know, the value that they get is not from the picking a site, it's from what the site is going to deliver for them, and they care about the quality of the reception. And if they're getting better quality reception, that's their number one priority. You know, they're not like, oh, well, we're gonna, because once they get the tower in, what matters is the reception that's provided, you know. And
you don't
they
really
want,
believe that though, do you? Look at the cell service over the years. The best provider that's been in this area in the state of Connecticut in 25 years was Nextel. The coverage, there was 3 spots in Brookfield, New Milford, and Danbury that you could not get reception with Nextel, right? As soon as Sprint bought out Nextel, the coverage went to crap. Why? They didn't,
I
the
mean, I don't know.
technology didn't change, but I'm just saying, they don't care. They're looking to get as many hits on that tower because that's where they're getting their money from other advertisers.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that requires
Libby-
a strong signal. You know, if you don't have coverage, then they can't collect data through cellular technology. I mean, there's a
But
lot.
if you're the only game in town, that's it. So, yes, sir, sorry.
I
I'll s-
apologize. I mean, we just discussed a moratorium on housing. We have 17 cell phone tower. We currently have 17 cell phone towers in this town of a population of 20,000 people. That is a lot of cell phone towers and antennas, and I mean, I don't know like all the statistics and like how many antennas we have. But that is a lot of cell phone, that is many, many cell phone towers, and we have a compression station that's looking to expand as well. I feel like we need a moratorium on that stuff as well as the apartments and whatever else comes our way.
Linda, how are you feeling right now? Just to gauge, I'm just trying to gauge how we all are, if we're anywhere close to,
Past my bedtime.
yeah, sorry about that. We'll try to push this through. So I'm just trying to gauge where everybody is, just to see if there's anything to draw from any of that.
I mean, it's,
Mhm.
the way it feels, it's gonna happen, a cell tower somewhere, they feel
Okay.
there's a need for it, and we
Right.
can control it, or
Yeah.
we can let them go to a landowner, and then they, as long as the landowner agrees to it, then
Right.
they will do what they want. So that's what it comes down to.
Okay, and just want to give each person, what are your thoughts? Where are you leaning on this, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it's fine to go where,
Sorry?
I think that where it's gonna go is fine.
Okay,
No, that's-
on the high school?
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
thoughts?
we have to have it.
Taking a very narrow, like, you know, we got this a couple weeks back, we asked
Mhm.
for answers to our questions, I think he more or less answered them, there were a few things where we need more information, but I feel like they, you know, got back to us, and we're not, you know, so I would be comfortable, I guess, making a positive recommendation
Yep.
for this, given,
Favorable.
yeah, favorable, right, given, what we were, not to rehash again, but what we were just all describing about the public versus private, you know, kind of tensions and whatnot, so that's all I'm gonna say, I would be
Okay.
fine, you know.
I would, I'm feeling that way too, but I know you want it conditional, but I would want to have it conditional, and state so. They're gonna do this anyway, but conditional based on the report that they get at the end of August, assuming that the coverage is there, and then that all that information is in place as we assume, so that there will be benefits for it, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of where I'm feeling. I'm hoping, trying to find things to work for all of us. But that would be my suggestion, is that we recommend back to the Board of Selectmen, yeah, that the Planning Commission is favorable to, now, we do have to differentiate. We have C and D. Do we feel the same way about both? I think I think if I'm hearing everybody, we favor
C.
C.
C
Yeah.
over D,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? Am I correct on that?
That is the
Yes.
better of the two
Yeah.
choices,
Okay.
yes.
We favor C over D with the condition, conditional to a positive response from the reports that we get at the end of August. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
If anybody could restate that in a better way, please do so and make a motion. I'll try it again, then, all right?
Oh, I
Go
can
ahead.
try to do it.
Go ahead, take a stab at it.
Make a motion to issue a positive referral
Mhm.
in reference to 88-24.
Mhm.
Oh God, I'm so tired, I'm losing my train of thought. Favorable referral to, I guess, go forward with the cell tower on town land with a preference for option D.
Or
over-
C.
C
I'm sorry,
over
option
D.
C over D.
Yeah,
But with the contingency that we're looking for that coverage map, we wanna see that more information at
and
the
that
end
would
of
be
August.
favorable, yeah,
yeah.
okay. That good, is everybody clear on that?
Yes.
A second for that?
I'll second the motion.
Ayes?
Aye.
Ayes? 5-0, all right.
Okay.
We're on a roll now, we're almost there, home stretch, here we go. Okay. We're on to old business, which is the plan of conservation and development. So, one thing we do have to do here, all right? So, we need, what we've gone through is, we had a bid for a consultant for the POCD, okay? We had, actually, before we go further, yeah, Courtney's gonna
I'm gonna
recuse
recuse
herself
myself
from this
from this
particular
conversation.
matter, okay?
I was told I have to go sit in the audience.
So, we had so the consultant there was a bid that went out, okay? We got 3 companies who bid on this, okay? There was a gathering, once we got all the bids, I'm trying to remember who was part of it, as our purchasing person, Laura, Greg, myself, we reviewed all those. And we all, separately on our own, agreed that this one, bid was the best one. So of the three, one was pricey and sort of out of range, and then it came down to two. The one that we all, and I independently favored, was a company called BFJ, yes. It was, as it turns out, to be the lowest bid. What was important to me that I liked is that it could meet the deadline that we have, which is very important. And they've done some work with Newtown, with Wilton Center, which is, they're like us, they have Route 7 running through the middle of their town, and a couple other similar towns. So what we're looking to do is to put out to vote to approve the choice of hiring the consultant BFJ to be our POCD consultant for this project. Okay? Anything else I should add to this? No? At this point in the night, it's good, right? All right.
Trust evaluation.
Any comments or questions on that?
I trust the evaluation you made on that,
Yeah.
was you and.
So there was,
yeah.
it was followed up with a phone call. I did that last Monday. Yeah, you were a part of that, Greg. And also we had the Westcog person there too, sort of a neutral person. And we had a conversation and they answered all of our questions. So this is quite favorable choice. So I'll make the motion that the Planning Commission approves of the selection of BFJ Planning to be the POCD consultant so that we may proceed forward with our POCD plans.
Okay.
I think that's all that's needed for this motion at this time.
I just have one more
Yeah,
question.
comment?
Why did she recuse herself from this specifically?
She doesn't have to say why, but.
I'm just,
yeah.
is she
Yeah.
a part of?
Well,
the
she's,
BFJ
well, as you
program?
know, she's not, she's leaving the.
Okay, no, I'm just, it has
Mhm.
nothing to do, I didn't know if maybe she was part of the BFJ or, but that has nothing to do with it, it was all
Mhm.
independent anyways.
Yeah, and she.
No,
wa-
that's fine.
Yeah, she was not part of the selection process as
Okay.
well.
No,
Yeah.
that's,
Yep. So, okay,
all right,
so,
then we're good.
okay. Is there a second to mine?
I'll second.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we have 5 people voting, right? Okay.
Well,
Ayes, include Naga on this, right?
I'm voting,
Yes.
Yeah, because you're,
okay.
Aye. Aye. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 5-0.
So if you could send an email to the first selectman, Mr. Chair, letting him know that you endorsed BFJ as your consultant, that would be fantastic.
Will do. I did write some notes just to make sure we're covering what we need to. I'll try to be quick on this, okay?
Okay.
Where is it? So, what else do we need to cover on that? Survey, sorry, Aga, do you want to mention, comment on the survey, where we are at that?
So we have 50 responses.
You can return that.
I reviewed, I read all the responses. Some of the comments are really good and helpful. And that's it, that's all.
Okay. I think that's about it. Anything you want to bring up?
Maybe just to say that the 4 of us on the subcommittee, just to remind other folks, we're working on the existing conditions report, so we're doing that over the next month. Aga, I know you had asked me to take a look at what you put in. I thought that all looked really good, like in terms of the tables of contents that we have
Mhm.
going. So, you know, over the next month, since I'll be only on the commission through the end of this month, and then I'm moving Candy Crush.
That's not a commentary.
My goal is to ideally wrap up that chapter before I leave. And so I wanted to just put out as an offer, because we've got 4 people working on it, I would be happy to like read through it and kind of do a little bit of editing to just edit for voice and consistency of, you know, that kind of thing, but just to take the basis of everyone else's work and do that. So that's my goal for the end of the month. And I think that's all I'll say about that now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was looking forward to Courtney leading the way on the POCD subcommittee all the way through. But since she'll be leaving, I'm going to name myself as the
I'm
person
moving, I'm
who
sorry.
will,
I
who will
contemplated
take over
just
that
like
just
not
to,
telling anyone and just
especially during the
doing this from
transition, just to
Newtown,
make
but
sure
I
that
thought
there's
maybe-
nothing that's missing. So I'll be naming myself
Well, we can hang
to
out
lead
before.
that. At least we'll see where that goes.
Not worrying about
And
it
then the other,
flying.
I did want to mention though, we wouldn't mind if any of you other regular members would like to join us on this POCD subcommittee.
I
This is,
understand that, yeah.
yeah,
And when I saw how quick your meetings are, I'm happy inclined to do so.
right. But it's,
21 minutes? Yes.
so you're on board? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
You are?
absolutely.
Oh, great to hear.
Okay.
Okay. John, the offer is open to you as well?
I would love to, but
Mhm.
I sit on other boards of other
I understand.
organizations.
Yep.
Plus,
Mhm.
I coach football,
Yep.
plus I work in Stanford
Mhm.
at 2 a.m.
In a few hours, yeah.
So, if I had
Mhm.
some extra time, and if I do have extra time, I may come and just sit in and,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
I don't want you to think I'm just,
No,
you know.
but I want to make sure that you have the offer to do so. When we see Michael.
Well, I appreciate
And
and
duly noted, and I
But,
appreciate it.
but yeah, I want to, that's why we have a subcommittee rather than the entire commission doing this. So that way, you're not necessarily obliged to make those meetings. Also, so we can make quorum as well. That's the other consideration. So great, I'm glad you'll be joining us. So, okay. I think that's it, and I think that's more than enough for now.
When our
to
next
cover
meeting is
that.
on the 15th.
It is on the
Yeah.
15th. Yeah, it is on the
So
15th.
if anyone wants
Yeah,
to-
so
Yeah,
please
so-
join us. It'll be, we'll confirm this, but I think the goal is going to be have this on the 3rd Thursday of every month. It's 7 o'clock.
Right, that's,
7 o'clock. Okay, so we'll add you. I'll just say we'll formally add Linda to the POCD subcommittee. And you're accepting, right? Okay, that sounds good. I don't think I think that's enough. We can move on. I think we can pass on the correspondence unless somebody has something they want to bring up regarding the minutes from the other commissions. Does anybody have anything for informal discussion? We've had a little bit of that already tonight, right?
Do you want to talk about changing the meeting time till 7 o'clock, or is that not appropriate for formal discussion?
Let's table that for
Yeah.
today.
On the next agenda?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next agenda, yeah. We'll do that then. Okay, I think we're at number 9. Linda, you're good at this.
motion to adjourn.
A second?
Take that.
Everybody, yes. All right, adjourn.
Second, third, fourth, fifth.
Thank you.